Hi, friends. It's Miss April. Thank you again for joining us for Creating Connections, connecting conscious discipline in our home and in our schools. This will be our session 8, our last session. This one is entitled The Power of Intention and Consequences. This will be another skill that we will try to incorporate into all the other skills that we have learned. So let's dive in. The attitude shift for this session is harnessing the power of intention. The reason is to conflict offers the opportunity to teach, not punish. That's a lot of what we talked about in session 7. But today we are going to talk about consequences because I know for a lot of you, we need to hear that to make ourselves feel more comfortable about making all these changes. So we will talk about that a little bit today. The value of this lesson is responsibility, being responsible for ourselves and the impact that it has on others. One of the quotes from this session that stuck out to me is, "All mistakes are opportunities to learn if we just see them that way. Be willing to make mistakes and have the courage to learn from them." The shifts that we're going to work on for this session are assuming a positive motive in conflict versus a negative motive. Being determined to find faults in children simply means that you're unwilling to change yourself. View hurtful behavior as a sign to teach new skills. Now, if you paid attention in session 7, you will know that those are the same shifts. So we're just expanding upon the power of intention, the power of love and empathy. So what is intention? Intention is the power to recognize that mistakes and conflicts are opportunities to teach and learn, not punish and shame. Remember, in order to learn, we have to feel physically and emotionally safe. And our jobs as parents is to be the safekeeper, where we can create that environment where children feel safe. We need to create that connection. Remember, that takes things like eye contact, presence, physical touch, and some playfulness, which is why we incorporate the I love you rituals into our home and our classrooms. The intent that we choose determines whether we punish, save, control, or choose to teach children after a mistake has occurred. It is difficult to make a shift from punishing to teaching when we have the mindset that all mistakes are punishable and that conflict is bad. That's where we're really working on shifting our attitude to remember that those things are good. Those things should be exciting, that misbehavior can lead to new skills. With that view, we may strive to avoid conflicts and prevent mistakes from happening. Yet when children make mistakes, they can choose to say, "Oops, I'm still fantastic. Now let's learn." Don't view conflict as bad. Conflict is an opportunity for children to learn how to set healthy boundaries for you as well. Tiring as teaching is, it is our role as parents and teachers, and it will pay off as our children get older and can face hard moments with grace. Isn't that what we really want them to do? I'm about to send a kiddo off to college in T-3 days we leave, and I'm hoping that he has more grace and empathy for people than anything else in life. If we set our intention to view these instances as learning moments for our kids, we will bolster our self-respect as well as help children maintain their self-worth. They will feel good about themselves. And that's really our top priority and responsibility. They feel good about themselves, they're going to do more. Being able to mess up and say, "Oops," is important because it allows us to recognize our oops. We make oopses and it's okay. Owning the mistake and knowing that it has zero impact on our self-worth. I am still great. Learning a new skill or trying a different way. Now let's learn. So again, you want to go away from conflict is bad and conflict shouldn't happen or we shouldn't make mistakes. We should, we can, and we will. When we apply this method to ourselves and our own mistakes from day to day, Then to situations where we have made assumptions or judgments. We talk a lot about assumption or judgments because I think it's very ingrained in a lot of us. It's something that I think we all struggle with a bit as parents, as educators, as people. So here are some examples when it comes to trying to shift our attitude to make less assumptions or judgments. And some of these still hit home with me in regards to how I view my own kids and things that they choose to do or not to do. So one of the assumptions that we make is that disobedience is linked to being disrespectful. If your kiddo has a messy room and didn't pick it up when asked, we consider that being disrespectful. Or they got distracted by their toys or their friends and their room is still messy. Those are two very different situations that should evoke different emotions from us. So just an example. Another one, the bad guy. Who gets the punishment? Also known as who started it, opposed to here is an opportunity to teach. That one can be my husband. He can be harsh. And sometimes that comes across as making assumptions and judgments versus trying to determine what actually happened. A humiliating fit out in public when no doesn't go over well, opposed to see the child as overwhelmed by their big emotions of being disappointed and in need of coaching through those emotions. Positive intent, powered with the power of intention, is a way to uphold the golden rule: treat others the way you want to be treated. Through our intention and modeling, we are coaching these young learners to set respectful limits and teach others they want to be treated through healthy boundaries and relationships. It's really the best gift that we can offer. Okay, here we go. Consequences. Sometimes I think that makes us as adults feel more safe. And it's interesting because the reason that in conscious discipline, consequences are taught last is not because it's the least important, yet all the other tools and skills need to be in place so that effective consequences can be possible. We have to go through all these other shifts and all these other emotional regulating experiences in order to actually dish out a good old effective consequence. Implementing this new way of approaching our children, relationships, and the world takes an adjustment to actually rewire our brains from how we were raised and how we have been parenting our children. Consequences are to be viewed as having a behavior that has an impact on others and that we can reflect on and choose a different strategy next time. Being able to learn from a consequence of our actions takes two things. Here we go. First, we must be able to reflect on our actions in relation to our long-term goals. Now, again, this is our shift for us, not for our kiddos. Is eating the whole bag of chips while binging Netflix going to get the weight off that I want to lose? Or is the child throwing their sippy cup across the table going to help them get more milk? So again, it's reflecting on our own actions in order to serve our long-term goal. This adults can do, kiddos, not so much. They just don't have the brain capacity. But we can start helping them understand that and using some of our words to explain, because it will have an impact on how they view what they're doing. Number two, we must take ownership of our own choices and the feelings that come with them. We have to own what we do. Remember, it is what it is. These examples show us how we can be motivated to do something different to reach our own personal goals. After seeing the scale and feeling the tight pants, we're motivated to stick to the healthier eating plan. After a child feels angry and disappointed, they might feel more motivated to please and have the capacity to and the desire to learn a new skill. Sometimes for parents, it can be really hard and feel uncomfortable to watch our kiddos have feelings that come with the consequences of their choices. I thought it was hard when they're younger. I have learned so much harder when they're older. I've raised some tough kiddos. I have some kids that have made decisions that have landed them in detention, that have landed them in jail. As a mom, you want to give all the reasons why these things happened, but my role is to let that play out. They are better humans because they learn some of the lessons based on their own choices. I didn't save them. I was there with them. I loved them through it. I used all of my really good conscious discipline words and probably some not so good conscious discipline words. And again, the most important thing to me is I have really good relationships with some of my toughest kiddos. So when we have our kiddos going through really tough things, that is where we can come in with the authentic empathy to help them manage their emotions so they're able to access all the things that they need to get through whatever situation they are in. In conscious discipline, there are 3 types of consequences: natural, logic, and imposed. Natural consequences are the cause and effect consequences. If we do or don't do X, then Y will happen. This is when we permit mistakes to happen, often as long as they are safe, especially for our younger kiddos. The intention here is that we allow children to try and fail in a physically and emotionally safe environment so they can learn from their mistakes. Our job is to provide the follow-up with all the skills that we have learned, with all the tools that we have, that we bring in problem solving, versus preventing, that we aren't trying to belittle them, that we are really trying to connect with them in those really tough times. For example, the natural consequence of the child who insists on not wearing the snow pants outside may be that they're limited to go and play outside on the playground, or they'll feel the discomfort of their wet, cold pants for the rest of the day. A child who experiences that disappointment after repeatedly throwing the toy on the ground does not get to play with that toy anymore when it breaks. So these are things that we have to really work through in order to allow for that discomfort to take place. It just has to happen. It's really the best way to help them learn next time. So the difference between natural consequences and logical consequences are, the reality is natural consequences are the most powerful and effective, and really the best to use whenever we can. When natural consequences are not possible, then we use logical consequences. Logical consequences only work when the child has shown repeatedly that they know how to perform the skill and feel connected. You guys, this is hugely important, that when you have kiddos with disabilities, either your own or in your classroom, or you have students that do not have the skills in order to perform the task, you cannot ask someone to magically have a skill that they may not have the ability to do. I have a kiddo who does not move. I cannot expect him to write his name. There are just some, again, logical things that have to happen. They have to have the ability to feel connected. This can be harder with kids that have autism. They may not be able to have the same connection as the kiddo next to them. So that's why learning who your students are, knowing your own kids, is ultimately the most important thing. If they are not able to do it most of the time, then they are not ready to have a logical consequence. They need more of the assertive commands. Children that have damaged relationships or are disconnected, kiddos that have been through trauma, kiddos that have been abused or neglected, they need to be very connected with you in order for you to have a consequence that will feel safe for them. Please keep those in mind. Know your audience, know your students, know your own kids. Some of the things for students that can handle logical consequences that have to be in place and that are required of us are clearly and assertively set up the logical consequence ahead of time. Remember how important our tone of voice is. With assertion, you let them know what you want them to do. Ask the child to repeat back what will happen. What will happen if you throw that truck again? Just an example. Use the 3 R's and the big E of logical consequence. Let's talk about the 3 R's and the big E. The 3 R's: related, respectful, reasonable. Related, make sure the consequence is related to the child's behavior. Make sure there's a connection for them. Respectful, the consequence is respectful in terms of the consequence itself and the way it is delivered. Remember, if you blow it, if you lose your canoodles like we all do, go back and apologize. Start over. Be strong enough in who you are and authentic enough to know that you can still connect with that kiddo even when you're the one that blows it. The third E, be reasonable. Consequence has to be reasonable, meaning it is something the child can do and makes sense in terms of the severity and duration. I cannot tell you how many times I've grounded my kids for a ridiculous amount of time and then I have to backtrack. Because it doesn't work for me. Like, no, you can't be grounded from your phone for this long because I need you to have your phone when you're picking up your sister from sports. So make it reasonable, make it work for you and your kiddo. The E, the big E for logical consequences is empathy. When your children blow it, and they will blow it, follow through on the consequence with a good dose of empathy. Help them understand that you understand. Consequences that are paired or followed with empathy result in reflection and ownership of the action and shame. The action and change, Don't shame them. Don't connect the two. Dole out the consequence because it is what it is. You made a choice. This is what's going to happen, and move on. Doesn't change the foundation of your love for them. Let them know that. You will be more effective doing it that way than you will with blowing it and making them feel like they are useless. Problem solving is a form of a consequence. Problem solving is the process of recognizing a missing skill and teaching it in a way that children are able to hear and learn. This allows the children to become part of the solution. Again, this is probably something sometimes as kids are older, this can be a really good tool. If you have a kiddo that really struggles with defiance, offering them some choices will allow them to feel like they are part of the solution. Remember, as a teacher or as a parent, within those moments, you are the child's safe keeper. When a kiddo starts screaming, talking back, saying hurtful things, or freaking out, it is really our job to keep them safe. Is it safe to scream back, drag them to the room for time out? No. Threatening them will leave them or send them into another brain state. So make sure that you are really staying connected. None of those things, if you react like that, are safe. And safety and connection are what is needed in order to make and learn the new skill. Pause. Remember the pause. We've talked about this a couple times. Remember the pause, actively calm. Help them to actively calm. Talk about what they're doing. Describe exactly what you see. Offer them choices. Give assertive commands. These are structures that can help in teaching conflict resolution in between learning new skills, in between learning new behaviors. When it comes to our commitment for our final session, it's hard to encompass all of it, but here are some of the key pieces when it comes to intention. Whenever a conflict arises, commit to breathing deeply and reminding yourself that conflict is an opportunity to teach and learn. Focus on responding to the conflict rather than trying to eliminate it. When it comes to consequences, break down the mistakes for your kiddo and help them learn the new skill. Be excited about the new skill. Help them understand their choice that was made. What was the result of that choice? How did that choice feel? What do you want to happen next? It's okay to walk your kiddos through that process. Allow mistakes and conflict, and then offer guidance through limits, possible outcomes, and choices. Allow your kiddo to experience the consequence. Model self-control and offer a good dose of empathy. So as you integrate these and incorporate these into all of your lives, I, from me to you, wish you well.